Hi, welcome to Constructing Landscape Building Words. My name's Ting Yi. You're about to see short films made by students.
Even though the topic has been landscape, it really is more about how we relate to our humanity through landscape. So it's all about how, one, we see ourselves, but also how we see others, and how we kind of see the impact of human lives upon the landscapes that we live in.
There's a lot being said in the films, but there's a lot being unsaid.
But also just observing and reflecting on the changes in landscape post-industrialization, which was, to me, what a lot of Turner's work was about. Everyone's film has a really specific historic and personal context to it, quite intertwined as well, with like the lasting legacies of empire and trade.
All these films, they're in conversation with each other.
That draws upon kind of the conversations that happen in society as well, and there's kind of like parallels with the films, but then also that kind of links to the parallels that Chelsea kind of seeks in terms of diversity and this kind of unison of different locations or different peoples and demographics. So I think that's really profound.
Flint was used by prehistoric humans to make tools. If you hit flint with a stone that has a high iron content, you can create sparks. You can capture a spark on a charred bit of cloth, or on a bit of black fungus called chaga, which is found on birch trees. Then you can place that spark into a little nest of dried grass and blow on it. Blowing on the ember creates a surplus of oxygen, which increases the temperature and spreads the heat to the rest of the fuel, helping it to ignite. And after that, you can stop simply existing and instead can sit around the fire at night telling stories of the past. Or you can look up to the stars and dream about the future. When you control fire, you control the world.
My glass is full. I raise it and watch the light refract 1,000 bouncing suns through the water. As I lift it to my lips to drink, the world drinks with me. Flowers blossom from buds of gold and crickets cry for pleasure. The tree leaves take flight, the air thick with me, and the shadows deepen into mellowed ecstasy, sighing and softening into the overhangs of rocks. It is the summer solstice, and I have spent the last 6 months gathering strength for my role, ever since the voices of the people rose up at the winter one. They called for me, sang for me, and as the will of the people is the will of God, I could but obey. I can hear the dancing now, feet pounding into the ground and bells tied to swiftly moving ankles. I am shackled to their belief. So on the day they dance the longest, I too stay up and meet the dawn, tired from the little night. Tomorrow I will start the gradual burn down to a feeble flame, until at last the long dark of winter has claimed my light. But I am shackled to their belief. So today I must dance.
Un loc aglomerat care cândva a tăcut în 1989. Mă simt în siguranță pe pământ. Nimic rău nu mi se poate întâmpla. Mă simt în siguranță. Un loc în care cândva bărbații torturau pe bărbați și acum copiii se joacă cu jucării. Blocul ăsta mi-a adăpostit toată viața, toate gândurile, fricile. Mă simt acasă pe pământ. Orașul ăsta e prietenul meu. Dacă ai traversat o stradă de 3 ori, a 4-a oară te va saluta.
The first object which saluted my eyes when I arrived on the coast was the sea and a slave ship which was then riding at anchor and waiting for its cargo. These filled me with astonishment, which was soon to be converted into terror. When I was carried on board, I was immediately handled and tossed up to see if I were sound by some of the crew, and I was now persuaded that I had gotten into a world of bad spirits, and that they were going to kill me. Their complexions, too, differing so much from ours, their long hair, and the language they spoke, which was very different from any I had ever heard, united to confirm me in this belief. Indeed, such were the horrors of my views and fears at the moment, that if 10,000 worlds had been my own, I would have freely parted with all of them to have exchanged my condition with that of the meanest slave in my own country. I was not long suffered to indulge my grief. I was soon put down under the decks, and there I received such a salutation to my nostrils as I had never experienced in my life.
但那种景象好像已经离我很远，连自己的身体都开始不认识家了，好奇怪。相反，就开始担心北京不接纳自己。It's already very cold here in the UK right now. Maximum 20 something. Wind. I've been driving in London for a few days. I find it quite warm here. I feel so as if I can't get inside to the culture here in London. Now thinking back, what made me want to go back to Beijing. So I said, they look good, I want to eat them. She said, come back, I'll make them for you.
Hello, thank you for your attention to Mugunghwa. The first step is to plant them. It grows well no matter where you plant them. Please water them with pure, clean water. What's even better for them are distinctive 4 seasons. The sprouts are growing up very well. Use the fertilizer that has wheat written on it. They become capable of withstanding the winds. Stretch their stems to make them flexible. Make sure the plant pot has enough depth for roots to stretch down. Talk to them regularly. They have finally bloomed. Show them sad pictures. If you've come this far, all that remains is up to you.
In the middle of the road, there was a cat. I think I'm in Japan.
Or in the UK. Or in China.
People's faces are hidden. Features of architecture are unclear. It could be anywhere. My dome was floating in the sea. Sometimes I could see the waves stutter and become a computer rendering. My uncle later told me this place often has tsunami. So the government thought it was better to use 3D rendered ocean to replace the original one. They said it looked more beautiful.
Not knowing the reason, I got into jail. I took out a piece of paper. It listed my sentences. Meat, 1 year. Without meat, 2 to 3 years. Penalty fines, $15.
I think I'm getting tired of looking for why I'm here. Or how do I get out of this place? The next destination might be very much the same.
If the sea is man and the earth woman, then I am neither, roaming our landscapes lost. Stone carved in man's image, it feels unnatural. The scapes saturated, a constant deep throat of phallic imagery, architecture and structures materialized from a binary lens. Heavy, rigid, articulated surfaces, lacking fluidity, softness. A place where transfeminine exists as a trompe-l'oeil. Undulating folds of flesh expanding for miles and miles, only seen as being alive but not human, natural. Trans is a concept to many, a caricature of gender, something that is temporary, ephemeral even, like hair that disappears when land meets space. The vessel a horizon of self-discovery. Although I see vast pits of dysphoria, there are also hills of hope, peaks and valleys of affirmation, briskly grazing clouds of judgment.
Fossils have been described as markers of geological and historical significance. However, I feel fossils have failed to accurately represent human life here on Earth. Usually only a portion of an organism is preserved in a fossil. Bone, feces, footprints. Similarly, I believe these fossils illustrate a fragmented picture of what life is like on Earth today. This children's figurine was unearthed near Caerleon. It originated in 1993 and it was believed to have been bought as a gift for a young girl who won a scuba diving competition in Australia. This prophylactic device was unearthed at a barn near Wells in Somerset. The temperature of the barn was particularly low on the day that it was discovered, and the contents had been reduced to that of a human slush puppy. These are just some of the stories of these objects, and these stories represent just a fraction of those waiting to be told.
बहुत पुरानी है ना, बच्चे से बात कर रखी हुई है तो बात से करवाने वाले ये तो मैं मथुरा गई थी ना, वहाँ पे ये वाले ग्राउंड की फोटो है।
दिमाग से लड़ाया आपने। जब भी मैंने देखा तो तुम्हें हमेशा लास्ट आता है। अच्छी मुझे डाल दे इसमें मिक्स करना। इसमें दे देती हूँ कुछ। ठीक है, उसमें थोड़ा सा ब्यूटीफुल। साड़ी का पल्ला बनाया हुआ जैसे।
जब तक लालटेन नहीं आती तो मैं अंधेरे में ही रहना।
इसमें धनिया भी पीसना है, इसमें गरम मसाला के लगा नहीं रहता।
ये सारी जगह ना, ये सारी जगह, यहाँ दीवार तक, वो पूछे तक, वो जब ब्लू टंकी रखी है, ब्लू टंकी नहीं, जो पेंटे सी टंग रही है, वहाँ से लेके पीछे ये अभी तक ये दीवार जो है छोटी सी, इतना बड़ा घर था, इनका पूरा गार्डन लगा होता था, अंगूर की बेलें, सारी सब्जियाँ, फ्रूट, हम खेलते थे। ये सारा, ये हमारी जगह थोड़ी सी इनके पास थी, ये थोड़ा सा हिस्सा जो है ना।
American scenery is a subject that to every American ought to be of surpassing interest. For whether he beholds the Hudson mingling waters with the Atlantic, explores the central wilds of this vast continent, or stands on the margin of the distant Oregon, he is still in the midst of American scenery. It is his own land, its beauty, its magnificence, its sublimity. All are his. And how undeserving of such a birthright, if he can turn towards it an unobserving eye, an unaffected heart. Yet I cannot but express my sorrow that the beauty of such landscapes are quickly passing away. The ravages of the axe are daily increasing. The most noble scenes are made desolate. Nature has spread for us a rich and delightful banquet. Shall we turn from it? We are still in Eden. The wall that shuts us out of the garden is our own ignorance and folly.
Demolition Derby, a town, a city that is crumbling, a ghost of its former self. It longs to be resurrected. Demolition Derby, a place, a home that is stagnating. Standing there is a hotel, but it has seen no guests. Demolition Derby, an area, a space that is unenticing. We have boarded up windows, but they see no light. Demolition Derby, a hub, a centre that is dying. A former theatre watches its own self as the drama unfolds. Demolition Derby, a refuge, a sanctuary that is drowning. A church once bathed in glory, but now it sees no God.
If you don't like capitalism, mate, what's the alternative?
Dreaming this big crazy thing where it is the currency of the world.
It would underpin a system that incentivizes circular thinking.
Everyone has to agree it's acceptable.
Sure, it's a little bulky, but is linked to many environmental benefits, and a really safe asset because it can always be eaten. And this value never changes. If you think this sounds crazy, well, think again.
In the fields across the river, about 60 years before I was born and before I lived in this house, a plane fell out of the sky with no one on board but bombs and bullets and guns and tanks full of fuel. Outside this quaint English town that for all of my teenagehood I found suffocating, the seemingly unbreakable barrier between it and excitement, it and fear, it and danger was broken. In that breaking, the house I grew up in was shaken in its place, and the bathroom wall remains misshapen. The 10 American airmen that had evacuated the plane were strewn about the country, finding themselves confronted by confused farm workers, having to find their bearings and check for injury.
Many sounds. This is a bird's Wikipedia page.
I love bird watching. It's one of my favorite things.
Me
to
too.
do.
I mean, it's wonderful.
I saw a blue titton, a long-tailed
Yes,
tit
I
today,
mean,
and
they're all coming
sparrows
back.
everywhere.
I've fallen into your bed, soft earth. From here, I look to the boundary's edge, grasping what little I can call myself. I am armor-clad, my skin thick with green blades. Whilst you lay bare, I hold remnants. They disembowel what I kept beneath. My deformities bring me shame. You are marked, I see. I am stamped and approved with the right to reside. Reside below, each stone and timber marked with those who named it home. I scramble for view from your peak to your trough, hoping to share my forest with yours. Within and around you I would be lost. I'd dream for hawk wings and begin patrol. There's a look in your eye, a round world enveloping itself. Each footprint is penned with erasable ink. Now you'll sink into me. You'll remember what you struggled so long to forget.
Nothing scares a man more than a witch. Once upon a time, they made witches out of us all. When the fields got shut, the gates put up. When the men owned the land, tried to own the earth. They cut it up, segmented the landscape, made the view a patchwork of not yours, keep out. That's when the fear began. Henry VIII married a witch, a bitch, the wrong Berlin girl. He banished God from his island to have her in his bed. And it all kicked off. Witchcraft became a crime. And suddenly, they were all at it. The old crone that sleeps in the street, the promiscuous whore, the barren wife, each one of them a witch in need of punishment. Nothing scares a man more than a witch. I knew they were afraid, but I never knew all it took was a tall pointy hat to make them scream.
But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. Long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay.
I can't be one thing that rather than yeah. I can't breathe through
That's a glacier from a no-snow mountain that drowns an island in a no-fish sea. We can't get lost in a no-tree forest. We can't get lost in the snowman's land. No water, no water ever. No water ever. No water ever. No man's land.
Well, it means ruling our own country again and having our say over what goes on here instead of being ruled by an EU state. And for you, what does tonight mean? We've just left the EU.
We have, and it's amazing. It's what we've been waiting for 4 years. It means we get our country back, we get our sovereignty back.
What does that actually mean in practical terms? What do you mean?
Well, the country's ours again, and we can have a lot more say, a lot more rules of what happens in it.
Over which rules? Over our court laws will be changed into ours, so we have what say goes on in this country. So human rights and everything will be turned into our laws, and we will have the right to, well, our courts will have the right to say what goes on instead of Germany. Does your daily life change as of now, do you think?
No. No, I think it will just carry on as it does, but hopefully better. And knowing that we finally left the EU, which is what we've been fighting for a long time, but hopefully it might get a lot more people together. Hopefully a lot more people come together over this. And
why would they come together when half the country passionately didn't want this?
He walks to find her within vast unknown. Of two great waves she bears his strife. Model for life, a frame that rises, peaks. Her flesh becomes a garden, nature's own. A muse controlled, a flower bearing life. Sublime, O fair goddess ideal, asleep. How shall she wake? Oh, where can beauty run? When paths diverge to all landscapes embrace. Her heart, her soil, converge with nature's grace. The artist, the writer, pulls her undone. The forest, flower, she shall not be won. She shall turn, strike nature's mark from her face. Will turn to him her artist's last and state. We sublime are nothing like the sun.
Your soil, your air. Even if we don't care, you will be there, straying around on this damaged ground.
Hello.
Looking for a place to fit. Is this it?
I don't live here anymore.
Or this? No, I don't think so.
I found
They'll say, go up there, you'll see.
a special place.
And then I did.
A land full of rainbows.
Never mind. I'm running out of time, and where's the sense in all of this?
We dance above
Just
the ground.
a little to the left, just a bit
Under the water.
Exhausting. This looks okay. This is where I will stay. For now. Just quickly close my eyes. Doze off until I realize
The light is so bright today.
I have been part of it all that time.
Goodbye for now.
Γέρο και ανέ με τα κρυσταλλίνια κύματα, συγκρίμαντας μοιάζεις με τις μούσκουλες τότε που σε πλευγάζουν και βλέπουμε στυράκια στα σπριδερά ξεφτύβουν. Μια μαυρίλα είσαι απέραντη, προσκολλημένη στο κορμί της γης. Μ' αρέσει αυτή η σκέψη. Γι' αυτό στη θέα σου και μόνο, μια βουή λυπητερή, χωρίς θανάτου ξεφεύγει από μέσα σου. Που αντί να την πάρουν για το ψίχουρο της γλυκιάς σου άβρας, περνάει αυτή να δει σημάδια άσβεστα στην κλονισμένη στην ψυχή. Ξαναφέρνεις άθελα τις πιο πολλές φορές στη θύμηση των αρκιστών σου. Πόσο σκληρά δοκιμάζεται ο άνθρωπος, φωτογνωρίζοντας τον κόσμο. Και που αυτός μετά δεν τον αποχωρείς ποτέ. Χαίρετε.
Γέρο και ανέ, τελειότητα του σφαιρικού συστήματος, τόσο ηλαρένει την αυστηρή έκφραση της γεωμετρίας. Εμένα δεν μου θυμίζει, παρά τα μικρά μάτια του ανθρώπου, που είναι τόσο τα απαράλλαχτα με τα βράδια, η καταστρόκυλα με εκείνα των πουλιών της νύχτας. Ωστόσο ο Αιγύλκος, ο καταβολής κόσμος, περνιέται για ωραίο. Όντως εγώ υποπτεύομαι πως αυτό το κάνει περισσότερο από φιλέγγι, πως πραγματικά για την ομορφιά του επιβάλλει. Τότε γιατί να κοιτάζει με τόση περιφρόνηση στον ανθρώπινο μορφή. Χαίρε ότι ανέ. Χαίρε ότι ανέ. Σύγησε το σύμβολο για να είναι κανείς αυτό που είναι. Πάντα ο ίδιος με τον εαυτό σου. Εσύ δεν αλλάζεις, έτσι που να γίνεσαι αγνώριστος. Και αν τύχει κάπου τα κύματά σου να σηκώνονται βουνά, πιο μακριά σε κάποια άλλη ζωή, μιλάνε ήρεμα.
It all started with Portland, in a time and place not too long ago and not very far away. There are only 7 of us islanders left. There was a time that we wished to be left alone, as we are now, but things have changed. We miss our mothers and our grandmothers. We miss sending postcards and using electricity and being loved. But we still have the beach and the sea, bonfires and fish, and we can still share stories of our childhoods in the starry and smoky nights. We used to all be so different, but we have lived and worked as one for so long that our identities have merged together. We have built a new island out of parts that we brought with us.
Have you seen the milbank flower, the panopticon flower to which no bees fly near? Waters filled up the moat around this island of confinement. I once sat engaged and talkative. It was in a kingdom full of storms and suffering faces when I thought of the panopticon. But I was delusional in the middle of my own little tower. In the realm of freedom for all living beings, there were no countries and governments, no borders, no policies, only the arts of pure ideas, luminiferous imagination. My dream was deep, I couldn't awaken. It that illusionism I muttered, and the false imaginings ever speaking. I felt compelled to sneer the lunacies. Revenant, 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 in there lived a silent utopia. Will transform from these concrete scars on the ground into the flows of the digital river, where I'm swimming virtually without a body. Digital river is a deluge of my spiritual data. We will let it flow into the eternal ocean of beauty, ocean of freedom, the vast meta-Atlantic, where one cell is equal to another, where divine laws do not require to be reformed, where health is not only a state of body, and post-industry is invigorated not by the profit, but the spirit of healing humanity.
Hi, I'm Jasmine Pierre. I'm a creative who enjoys a lot of different mediums. Mainly I write and I'm an emerging cultural producer. I wrote a poem for this Late at Tate Britain Online as I've never really explored the topic of landscape in my work before, and I thought I'd give it a try, you know? Why not? So here it is. This poem is entitled Them, the Land and Us. I'm traversing lands I don't belong, but are due to me, where I'm listless, weak, and disarming unease, where rolling hills and swaths of white are me, chisel in hand, carving borders with abandon, forming nations, places with identities changed, digging assets, raw, grooved, tough, turned into buildings, skyline adorned. Apathy sits with progress, partnered, extract to gain, taking to displace, as we till, burn and scar, sitting in apartments, rumbling underneath, as waves lick land, filled with posthumous screams. The poem was inspired by some different artworks, including Pastoral Interludes by Ingrid Pollard, the film Constructing Landscapes, Building Worlds by Martin Neuwirth, and the book A Billion Black Anthropocenes or None by Catherine Youssef. Also, just my general thoughts on human relationships to the land and how we all relate to each other. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Trees can live longer than people, in some cases much, much longer. This map highlights some of London's greatest trees. Many of great age, but younger trees are here too because of their historical or cultural significance. We set out to follow the Great Trees of London map and sketch the trees in our local areas. On the left is the sweet chestnut tree in Greenwich Park. There are over 300 old and characterful sweet chestnut trees in Greenwich Park, dating from 1660. On the right is an oak tree in Brockwell Park, one of the largest oaks in London. This giant dominates the grassy slope between the park's cafe and the Norwood Road entrance. Some estimate it is 700 years old, but 500 is more likely.
The largest of George Green's unmissable group of 3 veteran sweet chestnuts near the northwest corner. Maybe survivors of an old garden, they have had to contend with roadworks which led to another succumbing to the chainsaw in the 1990s.
This cutleaf beech is designated as one of the great trees of London. It is located in the Riverside Gardens at Twickenham in southwest London. Sadly, this tree has reached its life expectancy and is soon to be cut down.
These 4 trees were taken from the Great Trees of London map written by Paul Wood. There are many more iconic trees spread across London. How might a list of London's great trees look in 100 years? Many of our great trees will only be admired a century from now if we, their custodians, don't protect them from climate and development.
Nestled in the leafy bricks of Camberwell is the house and studio of David Heifer, an artist who has used the landscape on his doorstep as inspiration for his work for over 60 years.
I don't think it was so much a decision, but just naturally seemed to occur, really. And I think there's always been a tradition of landscape painting, hasn't there, really? And I think I just, without even thinking about it, I was kind of just drawn to it, really.
Like Turner before him, Heifer uprooted the classical idea of what landscape art should be. His artwork rebels against the classical countryside landscape and throws the genre into the city with his concrete tower blocks. Whilst Turner reflects the rapidly changing, steam-soaked landscape of an industrialising nation, Heifer captures the brutalist reality of a country rebuilding from war. Turner's factories, mills and steam engines, like Heifer's concrete prefab tower blocks, are monuments to mass social reforms and radical new thinking.
I mean, I see myself as a kind of English Edward Hopper, in a sense, in terms of he gave one an idea of 1920s, 1930s kind of New York, really, in a sense, and I see myself very much in that light of being somebody who maybe records life in Camberwell or South London. Sort of during the current time. I don't see myself at all as kind of innovator in terms of painting. During my time as a student at art school, and indeed during the time I was teaching there's an awful lot of talk about how to paint in terms of extending the language and possibly inventing new ways of painting and so on. But that, I find, can very quickly become very academic in a way. And I think it's much more important really to talk about what to paint, because I think that if one can find out what it is one wants to paint and record, that in turn will probably suggest new ways of painting anyway. And it will actually be born out of the nature of the subject matter, rather than being something which is simply superimposed upon it.
David first captured the public's imagination by bringing the street into the gallery with his photorealistic, almost life-size terraced house paintings. But this was just the start. The Second World War that raged through David's childhood paved the way for the architectural revolution that would become his primary subject matter. Born out of the dust and debris of London's bombed-out streets, tower blocks soon came to dominate the city's skyline. David describes himself as an artist who does not need to travel thousands of miles to find his subject matter. For him, beauty can be found just around the corner in the mundane, the overlooked, and the objects labelled as ugly and profane.
I think that is the main job of an artist, really, in whatever field. I think that is simply to open the eyes of people to find beauty where maybe they kind of don't think it exists. I mean, Constable said, show me something which is ugly. In other words, everything is beautiful if you can free it from association. And that's the beginning and the end of it, really.
Now well into his 80s, David is as active as he ever was, continuing his quest to highlight beauty in the overlooked.